It's time for Live on Lanier. Welcome to Live on Lanier, a monthly podcast brought to you by the Lake Lanier Association. This episode actually marks our first full year of Live on Lanier, and what better way to celebrate that first anniversary than to focus on one of our key initiatives, safe boating. National Safe Boating Week occurs in May of every year, and with summer boating season kicking off, we thought that this would be a great opportunity to go back and review the safe boating tips we've received from the experts and pros on Lake Lanier over the past year. Our conversation picks up with U.S. Army Corps of Engineers Operations Project Manager for Lake Lanier, Tim Rainey. Tim will talk about being the captain of your vessel and how that has an influence on the way the Corps of Engineers and DNR will look at any incident on the lake, along with other safety tips. Dan Vaccaro of the U.S. Coast Guard Auxiliary on Lake Lanier is up next. Dan will cover the Lake Lanier Flotilla and programs provided by the U.S. Coast Guard Auxiliary, along with more information on National Safe Boating Week and their vessel safety program. Georgia Department of Natural Resources Officer Tim Butler is next up, discussing the rules of the road and the importance and legal requirement to keep right, the 100-foot rule and when it becomes a 200-foot rule, personal watercraft safety, the DNR's boaters education course, and life jackets for kids. Then DNR Sergeant Bart Hendrix talks about hunting on Lake Lanier and the 600-foot hunting rule, along with distracted boating. Our final guest is Captain John Grobe, who is not only a training captain, but also part of America's Boating Club, formerly the U.S. Power Squadron. John will cover a variety of operating and safety lessons for the entire family boating here on Lake Lanier. So welcome to episode 12 of Live on Lanier. Please feel free to share this episode with your friends and neighbors who have an interest in Lake Lanier. All previous episodes and even more lake-related videos are available on the Lake Lanier Association YouTube channel. So please stay tuned for all these safe boating tips and a message from the LLA. We'll kick off our special Safe Boating episode with U.S. Army Corps of Engineers Operations Project Manager for Lake Lanier, Tim Rainey.
Remember, you are the captain of your vessel, which puts you in charge of safety for everyone on your vessel. So the best day on the lake is a safe day on the lake, and if we all just take a little bit more accountability and responsibility, we can make it a better year.
I agree wholeheartedly, and if I can, would like to touch on that. Being the captain of the vessel is true. We will look at it, and DNR will look at it. Who's operating that vessel is responsible for the people on that vessel and for the actions on that vessel. So those people need to stay aware. They need to stay sober. They need to know what's going on. They need to have a lookout. They need to do everything they can to do to ensure the safety of the crew, so to speak, of the people that are on that boat.
This is National Safe Boating Month, so we're very happy to have the U.S. Coast Guard Auxiliary from right here on Lake Lanier joining us today to talk about boating safety programs, different things they have going on. Dan Vaccaro, thank you for joining us and welcome.
Thank you. Pleasure to be here.
Tell us about the Coast Guard Auxiliary on Lake Lanier.
Well, the Lake Lanier is the largest lake in Georgia, and we have a flotilla that is supported by the U.S. Coast Guard. The U.S. Coast Guard Auxiliary is a uniformed volunteer organization that is supported and trained by the U.S. Coast Guard on the coast.
That's pretty interesting.
Yeah.
My own experience with the Coast Guard Auxiliary has been nothing but positive for many, many years. Not only the educational components, but the boat inspection components. Tell us about your different programs and what you do.
Well, generally, we have a lot of different programs, and I just want to mention that on the national level, we have an operations side as well as here in Georgia, but just generally throughout the country, we have operations, we have RBS, which is boating safety. And then we have other side programs, or I should say, major programs that we support the Gold Side, the Coast Guard Auxiliary, in many different ways. So here in Georgia, we generally have flotillas. We have 5 flotillas in Georgia, and the 2 major ones are one in Allatoona and one in on Lake Lanier. And so they both are the largest in the state. So within Georgia here in Lake Lanier, we have a program like it mentioned. It's National Safe Boating Week, and so National Safe Boating Week and promotes awareness of boating safety and some of the things to do while you're boating on Lake Lanier. And so that's the first part, is the awareness side of it. The second is to offer some programs. Some of the programs that are very typical are something called the vessel inspection um, program. I'm sorry, vessel safety inspection. These are complimentary, like I mentioned earlier, it's a complimentary service that we provide to all boaters on Lake Lanier. And in the process, if a boater comes to us and says, or if a boater comes to us and says that they want to have it safety inspected, then we go through a process of checklists of things that should be on a boat, that should be on any boat, let alone a size and the make and so forth. But in some of those things we check are fire extinguishers, the life jackets. We check for visual distress signals in case things go wrong with the boat or it falls, it just stops moving and so forth. And so we go through a whole checklist, and as a result, this is not a fine base. This is really just a recommendation, and all the recommendation all the recommended items on the boat, like the ones I mentioned. We check them off, and then if they get through all the whole list without really finding a default, then we just say, look, this is what you need to buy, and basically they'll take care of it, and we'll give them a sticker by the U.S. Coast Guard, and in the Coast Guard, it has on the sticker that they have sufficed the proper safety items on their boat.
What is the most common thing you see that people don't think about that they really should be more aware of?
There's a couple of things. As far as the state goes, the registration numbers are usually mangled or not properly installed. One other thing that people forget is the visual distress. The visual distress is something that is not always. A lot of people carry flares, and sometimes most of those flares are invalid because they only shelf life of 3 years. And so usually they'll have to buy new flares. That's the biggest one, is the visual distress.
And I'm also always surprised how many people don't realize that the fire extinguishers have a date on them as well.
That's right.
And past that certain date, they need to be replaced.
And
So-
that's new. That's a new one because that just came out about 2 or 3 years ago, where the fire extinguishers can't be older than 12 years old.
And correct me if I'm wrong, but didn't Georgia add an element that now you have to have the safety clip that will kill the engines
Right.
attached to an item of clothing or your life jacket as you're driving?
Right. As you're driving the boat, it's the shutoff switch. It's a shutoff that shuts off your valve when basically if you were to be thrown from the boat, or if something were to distract you from driving the boat, that you fell over something, this is a clip that would shut off the boat right away. And it's only up on plane. When a boat is up on plane, they have to be attached to that lanyard that's attached to the throttle. And so it's that lanyard that has now just recently been something that the Georgia DNR are giving tickets for not being attached while up on plane. And that's for boats that are 26 feet and below.
Okay.
Mhm.
How do they go about finding out about your boaters education courses and being able to participate?
Well, we have some stuff online. We have it's cgaux.org. It's a site they can plug in into their Google and find out where the local classes are. We have classes that are offered every month throughout the year. And then other flotillas have, depending on what lake you're on, they'll have access to that as well. Being to get online to look at the flotillas. Our flotilla is 29, which is on Lake Lanier. But if you Google search other lakes, you'll find that almost every single one flotilla will offer classes.
Let's talk about the DNR and their role in boating safety on Lake Lanier. Okay.
I mean, our number one priority is to keep people safe on the lake. So we're actively out there on weekdays, weekends, and our primary function is to make sure people are safe. We do a lot of boating stops. Obviously, if we see you breaking the law, we're going to stop you.
Sure.
Check your safety equipment. One of our major concerns on the lake is stopping impaired operators.
Sure. Well, a lot of people don't realize there's a DUI and there's a BUI, boating under the influence.
Right.
And the penalties are severe for either one, particularly if something goes really wrong.
That's correct.
Okay, so we know you're going to be checking for that. But again, the main role is trying to help everybody understand how to play nice and follow the rules of the road to keep it safe out on the lake.
That's correct.
What would you say under those rule of the road violations? What are the most common things that people may or may not be aware of, but can be a real problem for boating safety?
There's a lot of different stuff we come across that a lot of people, when we stop them, they appear as if they don't even know what the law is. Like rules of the road, for instance. If you're going up the channel, you're supposed to stay on the right side of the channel. Just like if you're on the highway, you stay on the right side of the highway. You don't cut to the left in front of somebody. You're supposed to veer to the right, and that's actually against the law. Other problems we have a lot of is people violating 100-foot rules, where they go within 100 foot of people's docks, 100 foot of swimmers, 100 foot of boats that are anchored down, swimming areas, bridge pilings, anything that's a recreational area like that. It's 100 foot. You got to be idle speed within 100 foot of it, and obviously that's a safety hazard, but a lot of people don't even realize that.
Sure. And a lot of it's common sense safety, but boy, when people get out on the lake and they get all excited and they get going, particularly when they're riding a personal watercraft, a PWC or a jet ski, as they're more commonly called, sometimes they just get a little bit goofy.
That's correct. And I would say we get more citizen complaints off personal watercrafts than any other type of vessel. And the majority of those complaints is people violating the 100-foot rule.
Sure. So the 100-foot rule doesn't just apply to docks. It applies to other boats. It applies to park boats. It applies to marinas. It applies to just about anywhere where you could go and actually hurt somebody.
That's correct. I mean, if somebody's swimming in the water, if a boat is sitting still, you can't be within 100 foot above idle speed in a PWC or a boat.
So another thing I think a lot of people are not aware of, but it's very important, and it's actually the law here in the state of Georgia. If you're born after January 1st, 1998, the rules have changed.
That's correct. When you turn 16, if you were born after January 1st, 1998, you cannot drive a boat in the state of Georgia without taking a boater education course. Now, you can take the boater education course at goboatgeorgia.com, which is our DNR website. I believe it's actually free if you're under 16. If you're over 16, there's a small fee. It's not much money, but when that law came into effect in 2014, so when we catch people that are between the ages of 16 and now I believe it would be 26 years old driving a boat, we're generally issuing citations for that. Because the whole point of the law is to keep people safe, make sure they understand the boating laws and rules.
And it's not that difficult or complicated to find and take the test.
It's not. Just go to goboatgeorgia.com.
Okay. I've got a daughter that may fall into that. I was just sitting here thinking about that as we were talking. But as you said, the rule's been on the books for 10 years now. It's really time everybody catch up and get on board with that. It's always been interesting to me and how many different states actually fight it. But you don't throw a 16-year-old in a car on the highway without them having gone a certain amount of training and specific safety rules that you're sure they're aware of. Why wouldn't we want the same thing on the lake?
And that's correct. And I could almost argue that a boat could be as dangerous or more dangerous than a car. A boat doesn't have brakes you can slam on and stop.
There's no clear white lines to follow on the highway.
There's not. So uneducated boaters are dangerous.
Speaking of clear white lines, you mentioned it earlier, and it's my own personal pet peeve. The idea of keeping right. Why is keep to the right such an important safety factor for everybody who's boating?
Well, because if you turn to the left in front of somebody, a lot of times it's going to cause a collision. We've already had several this year on Lake Lanier where the person turned the wrong way in front of somebody. They're meeting head on instead of just veering or keeping to the right. They turned left and a collision ensued.
And if everybody stays on the right side, including coming from the other direction, you're always going to pass each other on the right side. That one guy that gets on the wrong side, you could be coming around a peninsula together, and suddenly you're looking at head on instead of a safe passing zone between each one.
And that's correct. It's not just when two boats are coming at each other head on, you veer to the right. You should already be on the right side of the channel.
Mhm.
Say you're going up the Chestatee River, you need to be traveling on the right side of the channel as you go up the river, even if there's no boats around.
Thank you for that. I always, when I'm teaching people to drive, I ask them to picture an imaginary line that goes right down the middle. Make sure you stay on the right side of that line.
That's correct.
That's going to keep you safe most of the time.
Mhm.
Now, the 100-foot rule changes a little bit if you're out there wake surfing or wakeboarding, right?
It does. It basically turns into a 200-foot rule.
Mm-hmm.
So if you're going by a dock and you're wake surfing, you need to stay 200 foot away. Reason being, wake boats generate a larger wake and they damage people's property and docks. So
Right. I know some of the people in the surfing clubs on the lake are out there really promoting education for wakeboarders. So if you haven't found any of those groups yet, find them. They're all over. The Atlanta Surf Club here on Lake Lanier has been really strong at promoting safe wakeboarding and safe wake surfing. It's a very popular sport. It's really grown in popularity. What are the actual rules and regulations specifically in regard to kids and age groups for life jackets on a boat?
okay. All children under 13 years old in a moving vessel have to have a life jacket on, unless they're inside a fully enclosed cabin. That would be like if they're inside the living room of a houseboat, they
Mm-hmm.
don't have to wear it.
Mm-hmm.
But if they're in just a regular boat, like a ski boat or a pontoon, they have to have it on when the boat's in motion.
Sure.
If you also have to have a wearable life jacket for each person on the boat that fits them. So if you have a person that's really, really large and you have regular size life jackets, that don't count. It has to be one that fits that person. So it's the operator or the captain's responsibility before he goes out to make sure that he has a life jacket on that boat that fits each person. And also, they're supposed to have a Type 4 throwable device, which is another personal flotation device. It's usually a square cushion or a ring buoy.
Mm-hmm.
They sell them at most of your marine stores, Academy Sports, Walmart, marinas sell them. They're not very expensive. It's made to throw to somebody that falls out of a boat and they're too far to throw a life jacket. If you're in a Class 1 vessel, which is any vessel 16 foot or longer, you're required to have one of those on the boat.
Sure.
And the number one most dangerous thing on the lake is alcohol.
Mm-hmm.
If you're going to drink, don't drive. Make sure you got a designated driver.
It's that simple, and people don't think of it if they don't have experience with it. But with the intense heat and being right on the water where the sun is reflecting and you get in that heat dome thing, less beer than might have affected you sitting in your backyard is going to have a bigger effect on you sitting out on the lake.
Mm-hmm.
So the best idea is be the designated driver. That means zero alcohol for the day that you're operating.
That's correct. Now, a lot of people don't realize that the limit is a .08.
Mm-hmm.
If you get in a wreck or we deem you a less safe operator, you can be arrested for DUI at a .05,
There you go. So
which is not a lot of alcohol.
word to the wise, safe is, you'll never be sorry being safe. One other quick topic to cover is the rules change a little bit if you're approaching a boat that's under sail.
Yes, and the boat under sail is going to take that priority in that situation because the boat under sail cannot just simply turn and stop as easy as a motorboat.
Mm-hmm.
So you got to give way to the boat under sail.
Sure. Well, the great rule of thumb, stay sober, stay to the right. And you know what? There's no harm in just slowing down and letting things clear a little bit in front of you. You don't have to be the first one to get through or pace everything. Just you're on the lake, relax, back down, have a little fun out there.
And that's oftentimes what I do when I'm out there driving is I'll just stop and go slow when there's a lot of boats around.
Mm-hmm.
Getting in a hurry is just going to cause more problems. So just slow down. Just everybody just keep safe. Make sure you got all your safety equipment before you go out. Make sure your lights work and make sure you have a designated driver if you want to drink.
And if they want to have a little bit of a refresher or figure out where to go to take that boating safety course so that they are passed under this new law that goes back to 1198, where would they go for that?
They can go to the DNR website,
Mhm.
goboatgeorgia.com, and there'll be a link on the top for boating, and you click on it, and they'll have boating education on there.
The hunting part of it was a little bit of a surprise to me. I had no idea there was that much hunting activity on Lake Lanier. Can you give us a little bit of idea of what type of hunting takes place and how that all works?
Sure. So there is quite a bit of hunting that does happen on Lanier. Waterfowl hunting is one of the biggest
Mm-hmm.
complaints that our office will receive throughout the year. And it's because hunters are out there early in the morning and they're firing off shots early in the morning
Mm-hmm.
while everybody else is trying to sleep. But they do have to have all their required license for hunting waterfowl, and they must abide by the regulations that are set, being 600 feet from any really improved structure on the lake in
Mhm.
order to duck hunt or waterfowl hunt.
Would a dock be counted as an improved structure?
That's correct, yeah.
So that's one, first and foremost, I think that's something people would really like to know is you have to be at least 600 feet away from any residential area, dock, anything like that before
Boat
you can even.
ramps, bridges,
Okay.
everything. When you're riding around and you're enthralled and all the beautiful colors and everything else, don't get distracted and wind up running into another boat or something
Mm-hmm.
else as well. Georgia doesn't have a distracted boating law that's in effect, but it is one of the causes for most of the accidents on the water, whether it be operator inattention or passenger occupant behavior while they're on the boat. Either way, the driver is distracted, and it could be from cell phone, it could be from looking at the leaves, whatever. So just pay attention and follow the rules of the road while you're on the lake as well.
If not all. So give us some other safe boating tips we want to be able to keep in mind.
Sure. So we have noticed an increase in the cases of carbon monoxide poisoning,
Oh my. Yeah.
and a lot of this is caused by either exhaust fumes from the boat when they're under power,
Mm-hmm.
uh, the wind going over the top of the boat, the air going over the top of the boat, circulates back around, picks up the fumes, and pushes them back into the cabin.
Mm-hmm.
And if you start getting headaches for no reason, anything like that, it may be because of carbon monoxide poisoning. And the other thing that leads to it is generators. Generators on houseboats, generators, portable generators people have on their boats. They're leaving them outside. They may be in close proximity to them, and they're not really thinking about it that the generator's outside, but you can still get fumes in there. So if you can, get a carbon monoxide detector and install it in your boat,
I think that
just
would be
like in a
in,
house.
if you're a big enough boat to have a houseboat or any boat with a generator on it, you should have that
Sure.
on. There's been just every now and again you hear those tragic stories where a couple of boats are side by side and one guy's generator slips into another guy's window.
That's right.
Nobody's thinking about it until it's too late. So just no matter what size boat you have or where it is, if it has an internal generator, be very aware of where that exhaust comes out and always conscious of how dangerous it can be.
Sure, and make sure that the carbon monoxide detector is installed as low as possible to the floor.
But tell us a little bit about the history of the Power Squadron and how it became the America's Boating Club, if you would.
So the Power Squadron, just the name, rebranding, a lot of rebranding going on in the environment today, and rebranding Power Squadron doesn't fit the bill very much. So they went to America's Boating Club. They changed it to America's Boating Club because that really describes what it is. It's a boating club for America.
That's pretty awesome. That's pretty awesome. And it is literally a nationwide organization.
It is. It truly is.
Well, tell us a little bit about how somebody might find out where to go to get started. If I want to learn more about the club, where do I start after I watch this interview?
You can go to www.americasboatingclub.com.
Okay.
Go on there. You can become a member. All your membership information is on there. Joining, whatnot. And the boating club is really, they offer a lot of things. There's so many things that the boating club can offer. You can join the club as a novice, as a new boater. You can join it, and there's education, so much education. There's so many people in the club that are lifetime boaters. They've been sail boaters, sea-doo people, power boaters, speed boaters, fishing guides. A lot of different, every walk of life in boating is out there, sailboaters. And you can get information. Everybody's wanting to share their information they have.
That's pretty terrific. Mm-hmm. So the education process, it even goes beyond what you can do online?
It does. It goes way beyond that. It goes very in depth. They got a mechanical course, electronics class. They have a lot of different classes for everything that's pertains to boating.
And when you're talking about diversity, you're talking about way beyond just the types of boats. I mean, on Lake Lanier, we go from houseboats all the way down to little sailing dinghies to everything
Exactly.
in between.
Mm-hmm.
But there's a lot of diversity in your membership and how they're represented
truly
as
is.
well.
Yeah.
Everyone is welcome is the main point.
Exactly. Yep. Everybody's welcome, and it's exciting because everybody brings so much to the table. You won't get bored talking to you. You know, if you go to a meeting, you won't get bored.
It'd take a long time to list all the benefits, but are there a few more
All
really
day.
key ones that we want to be sure to get out there?
I'd like to point out the thing for me and my wife, is we're looking for something that we could do together with the boat. So many groups of boaters out there. You go out and try to find somewhere to hang out and stuff like that. America's Boating Club, we do a lot of raft ups. They did a low country boil last year.
Oh, very cool.
And that's always fun, right? And so there's just always something to do.
That's neat that you brought up you and your wife. My wife she loves riding. She loves being along for the ride and happy to that's the only thing in our lives I'm allowed to be captain of is when we're on the boat. Everything else I'm first mate at best. But she can leave the dock with the boat by herself and come and get me if she needs to, which she had to rescue me when I ran out of gas in our little boat many years ago. And she brought the big boat, no problem at all, coming right to me. But it's something you don't think a lot about is making sure you've got that backup plan. You've got that other person that, God forbid, something happened, needs to be able to get you safely back to the dock. You both know how to do that.
Exactly.
And a lot of times, I will just say this between you and me and our friends here on the podcast, wives can learn better from someone that's not their husband.
100%. 100% true. 100% true.
So the American Boating Club is great for families all the way around, including right down to kids that are coming up and really need to learn all the rules some mom and dad might not have thought of when they were teaching.
Exactly. Exactly. But like you said, it's good to have someone else that can drive a boat. If you go out on a boat, it's good to have, you said your wife, you ran out of gas. Simple enough, happens to everybody sooner or later. But there's a backup plan. Always have a backup plan. If you can get somebody else to teach your spouse, because that's the way it works. I do a lot of training, and it's always better if somebody else teaches. But the group, you can get, my wife's not, like you said, your wife, she's not going to drive the boat, but she can. If she needs to, and so that's important stuff. Have somebody else there that can teach. So it's a lot of fun. I suggest coming to, if you're interested, come to a meeting, check everybody out, and get to shake some hands, listen to what people are saying, and you'll walk away with a membership.
And the meeting information is on the website, which is
www.americasboatingclub.com.
Americas with an S, boatingclub.com.
Correct.
Okay, super. And you are a licensed captain and part of the training and educational component.
I am.
We'll talk more about that in our second segment coming up shortly. But my old buddy Frank, who we were talking about when I was at Aqualand, would come every year and do boat safety inspections. All you had to do was pull up to the dock, and he was there with his clipboard and ready to go through that. Is that still part of the American Boating Club?
It is. That's a big part of it. So I'm glad you brought that up. You can bring your boat to a dock somewhere, and somebody from America's Boating Club will come out, and they'll inspect your boat for all the safety equipment that the Coast Guard requires you to have. So that way you don't find yourself in trouble out there, be it you didn't have the proper safety equipment for the situation, or if DNR stop wanting to talk to you about your safety equipment and you end up with a ticket, saying your life jacket's out of date. All that stuff's really important. It truly is. I've seen so many bad situations out there, emergency situations out there, that you need to have extra life jackets. You need to have good dock lines, fire extinguisher. Multiple fire extinguishers is always best. They require one, but I've seen situations where you need 2 or 3.
And fire extinguishers do go out of date. A lot of people don't think about that, but if you haven't checked the date on yours before this season gets here, it's a perfect time to do that. And the idea of multiple fire extinguishers, that's a great idea.
Yeah.
I don't do that myself, and now you've got me thinking about it. That's something we'll add to this summer's itinerary.
Right.
So what are the boating safety tips? Have you got a couple you can throw out there with boating season coming up here quickly?
Right of way. Right of way is my favorite.
We talked about that before we started, but I wasn't going to say it.
So it's not just a phrase, right of way. In boating world, if somebody is to your right, they literally have the right of way on you. If everybody would practice that on the lake, right, everything is right. When you go down through the channel, stay to the right side of the channel. When somebody is to your right, crossing, they have the right of way. When you look at the lights on your boat, the green light and the red light, the green light is saying they have the green light to go. The red light means they have to stop. It means you have the right of way because you're to their right. So right of way is always important on the lake. That's a biggie there.
And the further up the streams you get, where they start narrowing up, the more important it becomes. I can't tell you how I just shiver when I see people hugging the wrong shoreline going around the corner because somebody coming from the opposite direction, they're head to head.
Right.
And it shouldn't be that. I always, when I'm working with people, I say, imagine an imaginary line right down the middle. Stay about a third to the right of that line. And
That's exactly what I tell people too.
Is it really?
Just imaginary line, because you relate it to driving. In driving, you have a line in the middle of the road. You stay to the right.
Exactly.
You know, practice that on the water. Just imaginary line right down the middle. This is your side, this is my side. We won't crowd each other that way.
Super. Well, welcome back for part 2 with my new friend, John Grobe. John, thanks for sticking around. I noticed the outfit change, a little bit more bright, sunshiny thing going on there.
Yeah.
That's all good. That's all good. As we said in segment 1, John is a licensed captain who also does instruction here on Lake Lanier.
Correct.
Tell us about your business. What are you called and what do you do?
North Georgia Boating Adventures. So training's always been a big thing for me. I was working for dealers, people buy boats. I wasn't a sales guy, I was a technician, but the people buy boats, kind of a blind item. They get the boat, they don't know what to do with it. They don't know how to drive it. They don't know any of the buttons, switches, anything. So I found myself having to orientation for people, you know. And from that, decided I got my captain's license, got a certified instructor. So I got where I was able to go out and start training people. And so I'm a certified instructor. I teach people how to drive boats, keep people safe on the water, a lot of that stuff. A lot of people buying boats and they just really don't know. They buy the boat and they love it, but they just don't know how to operate it correctly. You know?
Sure.
So I tune them up, you know, get them up to speed, talk about right voy again, you know, who's got the right new rules of navigation, get you out on the water and teach you all that stuff, really do. Spend a couple hours, a lot of different things.
You know, one of the trickier aspects for a new boater is being able to dock safely in varying conditions. Because you can come back to the same dock and the wind's in the opposite direction and it completely changes the strategy of how to get to the dock. Is that something you work on as well?
It truly is. I work with Carefree Boat Club. I do all their training, on water training for them. And David down at Carefree Boat Club, he's got a jingle, away from danger and into the wind. We always want to go away from danger and dock into the wind. So that's one of the things that we preach down there with Carefree Boat Club is paying attention to the wind and the current. We don't have current that much here on Lake Lanier. When you get in the ocean, you do, you know, rivers and stuff like that. But be aware of your surroundings. So that way you can dock correctly. You always want to dock into the current or into the wind.
Yeah.
You know, because you can overpower either one with the power of the boat. You know, so that's an important thing. But I always say docking is where you earn your money. Docking is the most important thing to boating. The close quarters navigation, being able to be in a marina environment and not hit anybody, that's real important stuff right there. So it's all docking and it's all maneuvering. And it all goes back to the basics. When I get on the boat with you, I'm going to teach you to crawl before you walk. As far as operating the boat, we're going to get really comfortable with everything before we do anything. Before we move the boat, you're going to be comfortable with steering it and shifting it.
Lake Lanier Association strives to keep Lake Lanier safe for the 12 million people who use it for recreational enjoyment each year. We promote safe boating through our installation and maintenance of 300 solar lights on Lanier for safer boating after dark, and with our life jacket learner stations and promoting safety courses. The Lake Lanier Association is committed to educate and protect all who visit the lake each year. Learn more about the work of the Lake Lanier Association at lakelanier.org.
Thanks for joining us for Live on Lanier, brought to you by the Lake Lanier Association. If you'd like more information on how to join the Lake Lanier Association, take a moment to scan the code on your screen or check us out at lakelanier.org. We'd love to have your support as a member of the LLA. For more information on how to join and our various programs, just go to lakelanier.org. That's lakelanier.org. Be sure to join us next month for Live on Lanier.